you note that Joop de Kraker's name is on there. We've been co-learning on a co-learning journey together for the last 3 years or so. We only met each other in person last week, and here we're presenting in the same session. And this time from the cities to the parks, valuing learning in sandparks as a landscape of practice. And sure, so little has been said about resilience, but it's a character trait that's very useful when there's change and disruptions and shocks, because that enables you to learn and sometimes change a little bit yourself as a system, a conservation system or a social system, and adapt to the changes so that you can retain your core function and identity. Resilient systems are learning systems, and there's beautiful theory about learning as a principle of resilience, but actually very little practical guidelines or evidence of how we learn in practice, and especially in conservation systems. So here we want to look at how and where do we learn in sandparks as landscape of practice, which can be depicted in that strategic adaptive management model. Starting at the step 1 at the top, we learn by co-defining a future desired state, and we do that with stakeholders, and through many meetings and hundreds of stakeholders often over a number of months come up with qualitative statements of intent and all the way down to quantitative endpoints. And then in step 2 we translate that combined with policy and available science into actions that can be implemented with timeframes and responsibilities and budgets. Third step, implementing the actions, also research to fill some of the knowledge gaps, and monitoring to track whether we're going in the right direction. And then the fourth step, to reflect and look at the monitoring results, see where we're going, and make changes so that we stay on course. So in this study, we're looking at, and note the terms there, discovering and appreciating where and when meaningful social learning takes place in this landscape of strategic adaptive management practice. And secondly, dream and imagine how we can do this learning better. We used an appreciative inquiry process. Appreciative inquiry started in the 1980s, a bit of a revamp of action research when there was some disillusionment of action research not really serving the purpose that it was intended for. And again, nice words. Appreciative inquiry view organizational life as a potential to be discovered and released, and not as a problem to be fixed. So it focused on the strengths. I interviewed 20 people from sandparks, some from scientific services, some park managers, some rangers, some other types of managers. They were fairly experienced people, between 6 and 39 years of experience in sandparks, across 20 national parks, with Garden Route National Park featuring the most. 20 people mentioned that as a place of significant experience. 10 males, 10 females, and the interviews lasted between more or less 30 minutes and an hour. Then transcribed all their data and in it with a lot of pages. Like it's these, if you've done interviews, it can be overwhelming and rich. But then took micro narratives from all the results and mapped it to the different steps of the strategic adaptive management framework. Appreciative inquiry there, you see step 1, this strategic theme or focus was identified through a participatory study in sandparks 2 years ago to better understand learning in our landscape. The second step is to discover. That was one of the questions that I asked. How do we currently, what are the good positive learning experiences in each step? And the third one is to dream. How can we do it better? So that's what we focus on here. I started with 3 warm-up questions just to get the conversation going. And in retrospect, those were incredibly useful. My first question was, what is your view on ongoing learning in the workplace? And I had so many amazing answers. It's a vital part of work. It happens all the time and everywhere. And it's needed to stay relevant in a continuously changing world. It brings joy and excitement. It's liberating, many more. And then through engagement, formal and informal, with people, textbook stuff. People also acknowledge that it's difficult to capture and share the experiential knowledge that resides in people's minds. And that's the knowledge that often leave the organization after 65. My second question was, what do you have to learn about right now to do your job better? No one said biodiversity or conservation. They already knew that. They had to learn about people and organization things. Managing, communicating, teams and stakeholders. Amazing. Of course, one scientist said, I must understand R better. It's a statistical package. My third question was the difficult one for many people is, can you explain to me an outstanding learning experience that you've had in the last few years? But once people thought about that, I got, again, amazing results. Several people mentioned GRIN, and then I asked why. And they said, because of the diversity of perspectives. It really made me think. And it was long enough, 3 days, so that you don't go on with the next task. You can think it through, and it made me change how I think about what my work or the systems. SMF, Science Management Forum meetings, it's when scientists and managers meet in parks, similar thing over 2 or 3 days, and we just very honestly and openly and transparently grapple with challenges. We engage a lot with external networks, someone with an international, global assessment, a scientist. Team building, where we brought in an external expert. Field work, where there were these retired specialists, they came with us. And for the first time, I saw things that I never saw before, so working, learning from others. Being curious, asking questions when you're a young employee, and that's matched by a sympathetic senior mentor that says, but come with me to the meeting, and then giving opportunities. So the next four slides are going to look like this. So the colored, the shaded step is what I'm focusing on, and the 2 questions. The best of what is, here for co-defining the future state. And this is the one that attracted the most and most enthusiastic responses. In Sandparks, we're really proud of this step. So there's careful plan. I couldn't list the quotes too many, but I've summarized it with those 2 bullets. The careful planning and robust process that empowers diverse voices through listening. I'm amazed how many people said we're prepared to listen and change course if we hear something different from the stakeholders. It's not just about gathering input, but a transformative journey that fosters inclusivity, co-learning, trust building, and collaboration in conservation efforts. There were also, what can we do better? And you see the photo there shows one of the venues. It was a community center and an evening meeting to meet people's needs, and that meeting worked well. But people said, Sandparks don't have the venues, and we don't have the money, so then we get this church for free, and it's dark and it's cold, and the acoustics are bad, or it's a tin roof building in the Lowveld, and the temperature is above 35 degrees. It's like an oven. So the physical venue, to be conducive for learning together. Also should be in the park or in the community. Some said, we've got to go to the people. Others said, we must show them the park. So maybe a combination of the 2. I'm going to go down to the quote there. One of the rangers said, none of us actually, that's none of the rangers in my park, none of us actually like dealing with the public and speaking public spaces. We prefer to be in remote places where no cellular reception. He said, we're doubling the strengths and doubling the weaknesses. We know about the veld, but we know nothing about stakeholders. So having teams that can do different things. The second one is, now we've got all that information, we mix it with the science and the policy and the pragmatism of a budget, and we come up with actions and timeframes and so on. One person said, that final product, after having started with nothing, that energizes me. So you bring the tacit knowledge from the stakeholders and the scientific evidence, weave it together, and we come up with a product that's also a way of learning. And managers, more than one, said, we involve these specialists, that's the in-house scientists, and they're up to speed in their fields, So it talks about many different types of learning from the external knowledge networks and then bringing it together. But then also at the same time, what can we do better? And yes, beautifully put, writing is a scarce skill and a few people carry the writing burden. There is a lot of learning that happens in the select individuals, but at the cost of bigger group learning. So you go and write in your office and get the file, and there's not enough of sitting around, and it's a time issue. So many people said we don't have the time. Because we get audited, we're playing it safe, so we might put in actions that are actually measurable and achievable. And then we miss out on learning opportunities by having, what about that, But how can we audit it so it doesn't go into into the product. There were so many more, but those are some sort of the essence. Implementing and monitoring, I'm not even going to touch on just for time. Monitoring was the one that we're struggling with a bit, I think. One of the answers was the rangers are doing anti-poaching these days, and they don't have time for monitoring. But in terms of research, acknowledging that research helps us to get out of old routines and comfort zones and openness to change. And we attract good research from outside, so not just ourselves. It's again that openness, because we have in-house people and they have networks and so on. From a ranger, some researchers give little snippets back to the rangers. You have mentioned as well, that constant stream of feedback to make them feel part of make them part of the research journey and the learning journey. What we can do better, there were so many people that said how you package science for the managers to have an impact is important. They don't have time. Don't give them the paper. Come give a presentation, and then I can ask questions, and then I understand. Or the 2-page management brief. One said, I hate translation. You know, that's, you do the work and you translate it for us. We should be learning together. So co-defining the problem, co-learning, and then there's no need for translation. And we do it in some cases where a manager asks the question, he or she becomes part of the journey, and they are the co-author on the paper. And, you know, so we're all on the same page and everyone is bought in. The final step, review and adapt. This was a surprise highlight. People really learn in this step. And the bottom thing shows the spreadsheet. You know, so sometimes you can just look at the spreadsheet and debate whether it's now 80% done or 58 or 85%. You know. But if we start to discuss, and there are different people and there are some presentations and well prepared, then it's an excellent learning exercise. People emphasize the multi-day and field-based reviews where you sit in the boardroom, but you also go out to the field. And then one person summarized it when we light the fire that evening, then the real learning starts. So that's social spaces, the informal spaces. Imagine how we can do it better to capture the narratives. That's the first one I saw, MJ. Getting time from busy people. I was privileged. I worked for the organization. I had access to people. Not everyone responded to my invitation. I tried AI. Descript works well for translating your audio into text. Very good. ChatGPT to have a sort of an early look at themes. Perplexity is even better. I love appreciative inquiry. It's all about the questions that we ask are faithful. They set the stage for what we talk about, learn, imagine, and the futures that we can have, and so forth. And then the last one, I just want to leave you with this. So I think knowledge, or how we learn, I never hear much about that in the tea time conversations. And I wondered why. I was surprised at the overwhelming positive and enthusiastic responses I got. And maybe there's an answer in here that human knowledge is deeply contextual and requires stimulus or recall. Small clues, or in my case, a question that prompts something, can provide those aha moments when a memory or a series of memories are suddenly recalled. So you know what you know when you need to know it. And then maybe we can have learning also come to the surface of awareness and be part of the tea time conversations. And then I wondered, so this is about asking questions and getting conversations going. Is this even research? So I'll leave you there.